My own talk is about designing a waveguide preset with the Eagan matrix. So I'm not going to be too much into the technical details, just to try to explain what a waveguide is first, so you have an idea, and then I will quickly show two presets, the basic implementation of waveguides within the Eagan matrix. So basically, a waveguide is that kind of guide. So it's a small delay line, so from 0.1 to 20 milliseconds. So if you have a delay of 1 millisecond, for example, then you feed a burst, some input noise in it, and then you get that output of 1 millisecond later, and feed this output back inside the delay line. So you have delayed it for 1 millisecond, it's coming back inside, and again, but all the time with 1 millisecond delay, and that gives you a 1 kilohertz sound. So that's the very basic of it. So if you do it that way, it's going to last forever, and it's going to kill your ears. So there's something else you need to do. The first thing is having a small input burst, so to trigger the thing. But you also can use that kind of guy as a filter, so having a longer sound, and you will have some resonating peak. If it's 1 millisecond, it's going to be 1 kilohertz resonating frequency. So to damp this sound, so it doesn't going to last too long, you can add a small low-pass filter, so the most simple filter you can dream of. One pole 6 dB filter is okay. This is going to damp your sound, and then you input burst, and it's going to last for a duration depending on the cutoff frequency. Also, something you may need to do when really implementing it is if here you have a constant value as input because you are inputting some noise or for any reason. So if you have 1 incoming, 1 is going out, going back, and back 1 again, so that's 2 and 3 and 4. So if there is any continuous value, positive or negative, it's going to bump to the maximum or to the minimum and stay there, and you will not have any more sound. So if you experiment with waveguide and you have your sounds coming, no more things, usually that means you just forgot the DC cut. So that's one trick. One thing that's not in the theory of waveguides, but that's something I often do. If you want to have a longer release, I add a small compressor in the feedback loop. So when the signal goes too low, I raise the compressor raises it up a little bit, and if it's too high, it cuts it. So it's kind of a way of controlling the signal in the loop and have very long lasting sound. So the kind of things you had with the oud sound demonstrated by Eric. And of course, the difficult things, and something you need to think about is when you are going to release your note, you need to stop the sound. But if you are done like this, like before, it's never going to stop. So you have to open the loop when you release your finger. So that's also one of the important things. One thing you may also be interested in doing is this. Previously, the output was coming from after the delay. That's nice, but if your delay is 20 milliseconds, then you input a burst noise, you have to wait 20 milliseconds, and then you have an output, and that may sound like a delay, so that's like latency. So if you do it that way, you immediately hear the burst, and then you have the incoming sound. So that's a way to avoid any latency you may hear. And that's for the basic of a waveguide. That's pretty old, so that's not so complicated. Then you can mess up with this and improve it. But the basic, and in the basic category of the continuum, this is basically how the preset is done. There's another way of doing waveguide. It's not also always well advertised, but here instead of having a plus, so you see at the entry of the delay line, I have a plus. So I'm adding the signals together. Here, I'm doing a minus. That has several consequences. So now I don't have any DC cut inside, because if I add 1, the 1 is going through back, and 1 minus 1 is 0. So any constant value is going to kill itself, so that's fine. But that means also that now I can play with integrating in it and inputting in it constant value. So if I put a 1 as inside, it's going to go through. 1 millisecond later, you get your 1 feeding back. -1, it's 0. So the 0 going back. And so you have a step from 0 to 1 in 1 millisecond. And then when it comes back, it's 0. So 0 from 1 minus 0, it's again 1. And so you have created a small oscillator just by inputting a constant value inside your waveguide. And this is usually very useful for blowing pipes style sound. So the tin whistle sound Ed has demonstrated is typically based on this way of doing. You add some noise to the constant value you're inputting, have that guy plus a few other stuff, but basically that's this. And that works very well as a pipe simulation. So what's happening often now is people are not going to use one single waveguide, but they are going to have several of them together. So this is an example. So you have two delay line, and in the middle you see detect the output. So instead of getting the output at the end of the delay line, detects the output in the middle of the delay line, and you can have two different picking points and add them, so to have several kind of string effects, or also mimic having the kind of mic position, microphone position on your guitar when you have several mics on it. And you can have very complicated ones, as these ones. The feedback delay network that you have heard also previously is based on this kind of mesh and multiple waveguide all together. So you have to look at the waveguide as a component, and you can put all these components together and make a more complex one at the end. But the basic is just what I've explained at the beginning. So I've got here a small credit to Julius Osmith. He did quite a lot of things with waveguide. Remember, maybe you know the old Yamaha VL1, so who has a lot of electrical on the one, and it's a very nice synthesizer. And it's basically waveguides, and these are the waveguides from Julius Osmith. But in fact, we can do most of what's done in the VL1 with the continuum, mainly using the micro delay feature. So you have 3 delay lines that you can tune, and if you have multiple processors, you can have a sequence of these guys working together, and that's plenty enough to go in a very detailed waveguide preset. So I'm just going to show you now. I'm going to stop that game. Okay, so here I've just used the very minimal stuff we need. So you have the delay here. It's just a voice delay, so it could be a micro delay. So you remember the gate that was open, so maybe I could. Okay. So we have this opening gate here. Sorry. So this W here is the opening gate. So it's the entrance of the voice delay, and it's depending on the pressure. So whenever you release your finger, you're going to open it. This B formula here is just tuning the delay line. So it takes mainly the X here and adds some things, so with the reverse of it. And so that's the way to calculate the delay line. So it's going to be in tune. Remember, we have this low pass filter, which is in the delay line. So that guy, which is here, and it's just a very simple formula it's connected to a barrel, the tube barrel, which is here, so which is a feedback filter. We've got a high pass filter, that the DC cut, so very simple, very low frequency cut, so just a basic to avoid any fixed value inside. And that's pretty all. We have our noise burst as input, so it takes the noise and just use a single cycle shape generator that's going to give a small burst of it, and also control the volume of the burst with a Z. And that's all, so you get. So and if I mess with the, so it's totally damped. It's damped. I have an input filter, so this is acting here on the noise burst. Can we have a bit more volume, please? So you play with these two guys, so this is fully open. So we have that very simple waveguide, string sounding like sound. And so the other one is very close, but I do it. I'm never using a mouse, but I don't know why today.
I probably have my trackpad set up differently than yours.
But that's my laptop. Just getting tired. So you see that. So this one is designed, so as I explained, with this delay line here, but here is the feedback. So this is the feedback inside it, and I didn't show it on the previous preset. But instead of being 1, it's -1. So it's just making it up with it. So I'm not using anymore this DC cut, and the remaining is exactly the same low pass filter input burst. Just the burst is a bit different because I can have a bit more. It was multiplied before, so it was just an import burst and then no more sound. Now it's a plus the burst plus a bit of noise when I press a Z. So that's the basic of pipe sounding waveguide. So that's pretty all.
I just have one. With that, so you're putting in an amplitude through the shape generator, so you need more of it because you need to get it started, right?
Yeah.
And then you don't need much to keep it going.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But you can use it the way if you want more attack. It's going to work with at the level. Just then this is a tuning of your sound, and usually I use a very low level of noise as input, but you also can use it with a high level of noise. But you also can use an oscillator, especially if it has a lot of resonating, a lot of frequency inside. You're going to raise up some of this frequency, which can be nice. So you can really use that guy as a filter too. There's an effect I've designed based on these guys too. So that's a basic element that you can reuse to design your own. And what is then very funny is to not. Well, if you listen today at a physical modeling waveguide synthesizer like the Vill one, it's just doing physical modeling waveguide. But the oud sound, for example, is a coupling of waveguide plus the model synthesis of Waveguide inside it. And that gives you a lot of additional, so it's a bit tricky to fine tune, but you really can go in very funny direction. So that's really, to me, one of the really great things with Eagan matrix. It's not one single synthesis, it's a set of components of synthesis that you can put together and even go in directions where you will today never read people doing some theory about how to use combined waveguide and model all together. It's two different tracks, and we can put all them together. And I hope we will soon have also the state space synthesis, and it will be another component, and it will be possible to have these three guys working together to have new sounds, just new sounds. So that's all. Thank you very much. If there's no question, or is it? Yeah.
Do you want to bring this to some new level? What are you working on next for the Waveguide, if anything?
I'm focusing on the FDN these days, so that's the sound that Ed was demonstrating with four different daily lines all merged together. And I think probably next release we will have some very nice reverb. So having some, for all those having several DSP, having one DSP, adding a reverb designed on some waveguide basis. So also allowing to tune your reverb, which is quite unusual. So that's one of the direction I'm working on.
You might mention the micro delay because you needed multiple.
Yeah.
You might mention micro delay because you needed multiple delay networks.
Yeah.
See, this is just he could use the voice delay because he only needed one.
Yeah. But that's the way to have four different voice delays. So you don't need. So you, as explained, 20 milliseconds is plenty enough for a waveguide. So instead of using a full line, Lipple did this module, so we can have 4 different lines, and you can make them work together, which is just great. So you can sequence or parallel or both cross mod the waveguides, which is really fun to do.
Do you have? Did you require tuning table? Tuning
Yeah.
corrections for this?
I didn't put any tuning connection. That's true. When you use
You can show it anyway.
one side effect in waveguides is when you damp the sound, it also has a consequence on the tuning. So if you use the basic waveguide example preset you have, when it's sensible to Y, and when you go to the lower value of Y, you nearly have half a semitone of flat. So you have some consequence of the waveguides on the tuning, and that's not linear across the surface. So then we need to retune it. So that's why we have that correction here. That is here to tune the sound. And on this specific sound, it's in tune here. It's not in tune here. So you have these 2 lines. So the blue line helps me to have it in tune on the lower part, but I don't really care on the upper part because it's out of tune anyway. So I've tuned here.
The blue line represents where Y equals 0.
Yeah. So you can have 2 different tuning tables depending on if you are on the low Y or high Y, and that's how it is here. Yeah, you're right. That's important for waveguide to tune them. They are not like usual oscillators. They are not on tune naturally.
Yeah, they're not linear at all.
No. Just before coming here, I had a message from Randy George. Maybe you know him. He was attending to previous ContinuuCon. He's a theremin player, but also interested in the Continuum. And he's doing software named IndyMailin. So you have his Facebook page here and website. And he has designed, so his software is the Max patch, based on the segment object from Miller Pickett, so the guy who has invented Max. And this patch is basically designed for him at the beginning to have his theremin driving some external synthesizer, and that works very well with the Continuum. So it gets the pitch of a voice with theremin or any monophonic sound and translate it to MIDI controls. And that works very well, and it's going to be released very soon, so we wanted you to be aware of this incoming software, so that may be of interest for some of you. Okay, so thank you very much. I guess we can have a 5-minute break and while we set up Benedict and then restart.